Claim 2 is this one. Morality and purpose can't be found within science. Claim 3, everybody worships something, including atheists, even though they might, I don't see the rest of it, might not realize it or something like that. And then, oh, no, he had a claim 4. Atheists accept Christian morality, but deny the religion's foundational stories.
That's a very good, that's the thing that we love too, right? I think we talked about pretty much as well.
All right, so Jordan Peterson's claim here, claim number 2, morality and purpose cannot be found within science. I agree completely. It's just the crowd that we've seen here, I don't know if they're going to understand or...
They always try to squeeze in utilitarianism some kind of way, so we'll see.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I don't even know if this is a good... I don't know if this format for things is the best for establishing that point. Let me put it differently. I think a better format, like seriously, people, if anyone has any connections at Jubilee, I know maybe they like doing things like this and so on, or for someone who wants, if someone else who wants to do a different show, but better. If someone wants to do a similar show, but better, here's how you do it. You give the person there 10 minutes to explain his position and lay out a defense of his position. Like, here's what I'm claiming, here's my reasoning, and so on. Give him like 10 minutes to lay out a case, and then let everyone come up one at a time, rush in to blast his points. But then it's not like just people missing things and going off on tangents and something like that. The point will have been made, and then people get to jump up and play skeptic about it. I think that would be superior to him making a claim and then a bunch of people sometimes just not addressing the claim and going off on tangents and never getting anywhere.
Someone tell James what is it? James of Modern Day Debate. He should do that. He should do like a version of that where he does that specifically.
I think James was planning on doing something like this.
Yeah, he could do it like that though. That'd be better.
Yeah. Hey. Someone tell James something like that on the Islamic dilemma. You know what I mean?
Or someone tell you. You could just message James.
Yeah, that's true. I could. But yeah, so in that situation, you get like 10 Muslims, like someone lays out like a 10-minute version of the Islamic dilemma, and then rapid fire. Come with your objections. Come with your objections, rapid fire. Let's see what happens. So yes, things like that. I think that would be a massive improvement over this format. Because basically this has just become the only purpose of the show is gotcha stuff at this point. And who's seriously going to want to be doing this forever? Okay, so his claim, morality and purpose cannot be found within science. I agree. You're talking about two completely different domains here.
And purpose cannot be found within science.
Well, they're all going.
What is up, Mr. Canada?
How you doing, man?
I'm doing great.
What's
How are
your
you?
name?
Brian. I think it's interesting that you say that morality and purpose can't be found in science. Actually,
No, within science.
sure.
Yeah.
Purpose, I actually grant you, because purpose is subjective, right? Unless you want to boil it down to the purpose of life is just to procreate, right? Sure, whatever.
Purpose is subjective. And then he brings up, unless you're just saying the purpose is to procreate or something like that. Trying to think. So it's on the topic of teleology or something like that. I'm trying to think, because he's interpreting it as you just mean like a purpose in someone's head. Or is there like a purpose is there a purpose to life? Is there a purpose to my life or something like that? There it's like goal directed. Is there some, I don't know how you can distinguish am I a goal directed thing? It seems like you have to clarify exactly what you mean by purpose to avoid.
I think.
Go ahead,
I think what he's saying is that meaning or purpose to life is subjective. There is no objective meaning to life or purpose in life, except if you want to argue that there is a natural objective meaning to life, which is just about continued procreation. That's what he is saying. But the thing is, even in that case, it would be subjective.
Both with morals and purpose, it's not a description of the way things are, but the way things should be. And a should statement could only exist in a mind. And so I don't know how you could get ethics or purpose without it being created in a mind. And then you would need to have a mind that has power and authority over everyone in order for it to be objective in the sense that it's true for everyone. But I don't even know how you would distinguish purpose from morality. I guess we could just listen to him, but I feel like it's probably not going to make sense.
Yeah, it needs to be clarified. Like I can say, what's the purpose of this cup? Because it was made for a purpose. It was made to do something, right? There's something that it's meant to do. But then I can have, my purpose here, and that would be subjective. But then there's a sense in which, like, okay, do human beings have a purpose, even in a biological sense? Like Richard Dawkins would say, yes. He famously said that human beings are machines for propagating DNA. Like that's what your purpose is as far as biology. And he said it's the only one. It's your only purpose from a biological perspective, and so on. Anyway, but yeah, I'm assuming Jordan Peterson is thinking something more than that.
Even that would just have to be because of its explanatory power. Because if you're a physicalist, everything's just going by the laws of physics. So you can't even really say that it's trying to procreate. It's just the laws of physics makes it the case such that these things try to procreate. If that makes sense.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's saying that because he believes in the blind watchmaker, right? That you are being designed. You are being designed in a sense by trial and error, natural selection and so on. But that you actually do have a purpose, but your purpose is to propagate a molecule, right? You have a molecule within you, and it has basically, your entire body is the product of trial and error, whose purpose is to be better at propagating that molecule. I made a video criticizing that for a long time ago, where I pointed out that atheists have the lowest birth rates, and therefore atheism destroys the one purpose that you have, according to Richard Dawkins. Anyway, might want to revisit that sometime because I thought that was funny. But here we go.
Morality is actually something that we do see. We actually have examples of Neanderthals, an older individual was found in a tribe, missing an arm, missing teeth, still alive somehow in his 40s, 50s, right? Typically.
What's this dork nodding at? That's what I understand someone not getting a point, making a wrong point, but when the other atheist was like, that's a great point. It's like, no, he didn't even understand the point yet.
He's big into Neanderthal rights.
Yeah. It's not saying that there was no concept of you don't have a moral obligation that you discover scientifically. You don't discover a moral obligation or a moral value with a telescope or a microscope. It's in a different domain. So what is that domain? Because it's not. And the point there is you had for all these years, you had atheists, we only believe in what science shows. Okay, do you believe it's wrong to murder? Yes, of course. Okay, where are you getting that from? Because you didn't get it from science. You didn't find that in a lab, dummy.
Here's an analogy why his argument doesn't work. It would be like being able to prove that Neanderthals believed in ghosts. But we have this evidence that Neanderthals used to believe in ghosts. Yeah. Well, that doesn't prove that the ghosts are provable by science. It's just showing that Neanderthals believed in it.
Yeah, we're not talking about an organism here. Organisms that behaved in a way that we would regard as moral. It's if you're looking at that behavior and saying that's moral or that behavior is better than this, science is not telling you that is better or that is more moral. That's something else. It seems like this guy is just thinking in terms of I can show that people did, other things did behave morally or something like that. But yeah, we'll see.
Hey, Christian Gafflight, people in the chat think you're trans.
It's ma'am.
Hey, listen here, sir. All right, here we go.
You're a Neanderthal. You can't eat. You can't hunt. You die. Right. But we know that members of his tribe were taking care of him. right? So we know that at some level, early in our evolutionary history, we actually developed altruism. We have examples of chimpanzees who actually have a basic understanding of fairness, right? If you give a chimpanzee 2 grapes, right, and his buddy gets 3, right, he actually freaks out, right? But you give both chimps 3 grapes and they're good. We have examples of parrots.
Except for the greedy chimps.
Except for the greedy chimps.
Yeah, this is a guy. He's clearly smart. He's clearly done a lot of studying on this issue. It's just not the real issue. So anyway,
Yeah.
he hasn't understood the fundamental issue.
You can apply it to the ghost thing. And then the other thing is
repeat your ghost example for everyone.
The ghost example was you're talking about Neanderthal. Oh, if you prove that chimpanzees believed in ghosts, that doesn't prove scientifically that ghosts exist. So just because you're able to prove that these animals believe that morals exist, that doesn't prove scientifically that the morals exist. And also, observational data you can collect just by looking at contemporary humans and see that they believe in morals. That still doesn't prove that morals exist. His example is no better than just because it's ancient animals versus contemporary humans. It doesn't give him any kind of epistemological advantage to making his argument. It's either way, it would be the same argument. You're just observing people believe in morals. It'd be like, I've observed a guy who believes he's Elvis. That doesn't prove scientifically the guy's Elvis.
Hey guys, my wife is not home. She went to a funeral today and she's coming back on a plane, and I hear my youngest son running around downstairs, and I realize I was supposed to put him to bed and he's running around. So we'll play a couple more seconds of this and then you guys can talk about it while I go put a kid to bed, because it's past his bedtime and it's a school night. But let's watch a little more.
They want 4 graves. Those do exist, right? But we have similar examples where we do animal tests, right?
So morality is intrinsic.
I think
so. It precedes science.
I think that actually a better way to define it would be that social animals, which we are, right, require some level of morality or
into what? I'm not disagreeing.
Sure.
Why do they require that?
Because it's
IP, I'm assuming you can break down like the is-ought distinction for everyone that this guy's missing. It's like just because you behave in a certain way and just because it's useful, that is not the same thing that we're talking about when we talk about morality. But we'll let him go a little longer here, and then
only way that social groups can actually survive, right?
That's my point with regards to science. Thank you very much.
Is that
precisely the point that you just made, that science has to exist within a moral framework that isn't in itself scientific?
How's that not scientific?
Well, because it's not derived from the scientific process, as you just indicated.
It doesn't need to derive from the scientific process. It's the fact that we are social animals, and we need that to exist as a group.
I agree, but you pointed to the morality of Neanderthals, to the morality of chimpanzees. They didn't derive that from science.
They don't need to. That's not how that works.
That's my point.
They didn't need to. Got that. All right. You guys break things down for them.
Yeah, this guy doesn't seem to understand the problem here. He's just telling the audience that, people have experienced morality, they engage in morality, they do morality. That is not the issue. You just can't go back in the past and be like, oh, yeah, we find other people engaging in morality. You're just describing things. Morality is about prescriptions. The question is, where did those prescriptions come from? They don't come from science, obviously. This guy, it's like, he's not even on the same wavelength as Peterson on this issue. He's just like, he doesn't even understand the issue, the philosophical conundrum of the is-ought fallacy. All he's describing is what is happening with Neanderthals or with humans or with chimpanzees. That doesn't explain the oughts. Where are these oughts coming from? They're obviously not coming from science. He doesn't get this basic issue. He needs to study philosophy more in depth, because it seems like he knows a ton about science. He doesn't understand the philosophical issues at all.
Do you want to say something?
I was blind to this when I was an atheist, because like him, you just kind of you don't realize it, but you're presupposing that morals exist already. And the only way to shake me out of it was reading the work of an atheist named John Gray. And he wrote a book called Straw Dogs. And in the book, he's basically arguing that you can't hold to the idea that there's morals and a greater purpose and that there's no God. We're basically just animals. And I was able to listen to this guy's arguments at that moment in my life. I was very closed off to like Christian arguments, and so to hear it from an atheist saying you can't have morals on an atheistic worldview was really powerful for me, and it kind of made sense the more you think about it. Because think of it like this: I might tell my daughter, "You need to go to bed by 10 p.m.," and that's an ought statement. It's not a description of the way things are. It's not something you prove up in a lab by doing a measurement of something's mass or how long it is. It's an intentionality that can only be created by a mind, an ought, that she should go to bed at 10 p.m. And it's not made out of matter and energy. It's not made out of electrons and protons. It's not a description of the way things are. It's something that should happen, a potential in the future. And it can only exist if I have the authority to impose that on her, if I have the ability to have the knowledge of what she's doing, if she really did go to bed or not, and for me to have like the power to enforce my rules. Well, okay, so with that groundwork, how do you have a moral law that applies to everyone? And so the only way you can end up getting to something like that is you have to have a mind. And it has to be an all-powerful mind with authority over everyone. And it needs to have the ability to instantiate its will in the world. And people have been living in Christian waters for so long that they don't realize all the groundwork of morals that comes from God. But Nietzsche saw this. And that's why when he says that God is dead, all he can replace it with is the will to power, which is just all that exists is power. It doesn't matter what's true. It doesn't matter what's good or evil. Just if you're, let's say there's no God for a moment and I have a gun and I want your money. It doesn't matter if, what's good or evil. You're going to give me the money because I have the gun, right? So all there is that will to power. But if there's a God, he can put in this rule that's like, be kind to widows and orphans, protect the weak, etc.
The morality is still one of those issues where I have big difficulties with, because I think I went into that also with David, like in private and in public. We went into that very, very much on our disagreements on morality. But I think so. I can agree with this guy here who is arguing with Jordan Peterson to a certain extent, but he's missing something. I could say that I could totally agree with him on the idea that, which is basically the point that you guys were also making, that you can find moral behavior in nature. You can find moral patterns in nature. You can find moral behavior among animals that don't really need morality, but they seem to develop some sort of morality. You can also come up with certain moral rules simply based on what nature requires. You live in a world with other humans. You become social animals, social beings. In order to have a properly functioning society, you have to somehow develop a moral rules to live together with your neighbors and not to randomly murder each other, not to rob each other, to live in safety with each other, because you want to feel safe, you want to flourish, you don't want to establish or contribute to a world where people just stab and take from each other. So in order not to do that, you establish certain moral rules. You could argue that you can find this in nature, but then the issue is the morals that develop as a result of this would be very arbitrary, and in an atheistic worldview, you would be under no obligation at all to follow those rules if you are not interested in participating in society, for example. So you could completely take on a very self-absorbed and completely egotistic and psychopathic worldview and say, oh yeah, we should probably be abide by certain rules if we want to live in peace. I don't want to live in peace, however. I just want to take whatever I want to take. And there is no conscience. There is no greater being that keeps you in check. There is no greater being that holds you responsible. So you don't have to follow by those morals that humans just came up with because of out of necessity. So you can just become amoral and immoral and psychopathic. You could, however, get around this if you, for example, believe in Christianity, which has a moral system that doesn't just depend on society, that doesn't just depend on necessity, that doesn't depend on nature, that is directly instilled by a greater being that is beyond us. And maybe, just maybe, the fact that moral behavior exists in different species is not a point against morality in the religious sense. Maybe it is a point for morality in the religious sense. Maybe humans were created to develop or to have moral behavior because that is what they are required to do or expected to do by the God that created them.
Yeah, it's this idea of moral progress is that we're like, just like you can have different societies have different views about science and the way the world works. We're still moving towards something that is objective. It's not like we didn't invent science or math. We're discovering the way the world works. The simple question to ask to this guy is, when Neanderthals were developing morality, were they doing it via science? No, therefore Peterson is right. He doesn't get that basic point, though.
Powerful.
Indeed. Well, mission accomplished. Kid successfully in bed. The problem is I have this mute button, and then but now whenever I think muted, I think I'll zooted. It's just like taking over. And then I think, it'd be messed up to have a zoot button.
I'm going to start using that as a euphemism for like effing up something. Oh man, I al-zooted that video.
That's good, because we need alternatives, right? We need alternatives that have this same rough meanings and so on. Ayo, AP.
Yes.
Got a message from our friend Abdullah Samir. I don't know what time zone he's in. What time were you planning on going live on your channel on Thursday? Was that 8?
Yes.
Okay, so he said 7. So he is in Central Time Zone. But he's asking if 4:30 to 6:30 works on his channel, so that would be 5:30 to 7:30 on his channel, and then your channel at 8.
Yeah.
Does that work?
And IP wanted to go live earlier that day anyway, so IP could just keep that earlier time, and we can go live with Abdullah Samir on his channel. That works, yeah. Cool. Works.
That works? So I can message him and say this works?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, I have ex-Muslims on my channel this Thursday.
Powerful.
All right, there we go. Wait, what's going on?
Oh, I'm bringing 2 ex-Muslims on my channel. We're going to look at some Muslim videos.
Okay.
Sharik Khan and Ishmael, who was on
You mentioned that. Yeah, that's cool. That's a good idea.
You're going to have Shah Rukh Khan on your channel, the actor?
You're going to have Shaka Khan on your channel, the singer?
Shaka Khan!
All right, here we go.
Explains it.
No, science doesn't explain morality.
It doesn't explain how social animals would need to be.
Well, that's
altruistic.
a complicated question.
But we see it though.
Yeah, but explaining the evolution of morality and explaining morality itself aren't the same thing.
Okay, so you're asking why does this happen?
Yes, that's more accurate.
Because we're social animals. And we need
but there's
to be...
more to it than that.
Is there?
Sure. For example, so we're moral animals that have a sense of the future.
Sure.
Okay, that makes us unique. And that structures our morality.
No, actually, there are other animals that can predict the future. Or not predict
really.
the future. No, tigers. Actually, there was a tiger at the SF Zoo that...
This guy's not incorrect in what he's saying. He's just not understanding what Jordan Peterson is saying. So when human beings are making moral decisions based on future outcomes, he says, no, tigers can do that. Yeah, a tiger has some awareness. If I go do this, then this can happen. That's not what Jordan Peterson is talking about. Anyway.
Killed somebody. And so
hunting
actually...
animals...
No. Kids threw shit at the tiger. The tiger actually plotted its escape. And it found the kids.
I'm not saying that animals can't
Oh my
think.
God.
Okay,
No, but
let's
they
pause
can
here.
perceive the future. That's what I'm saying.
Well-
Voted out by the majority.
Thank you, man.
Good man. Yeah.
You're muted, dude.
Wait, he's been voted out by the... Is that how it works? They vote him out because they don't like
Yeah,
him?
the way it
A
worked is
certain
like...
number of people raise their flags, and once it's 3 or something. You're saying once it's a majority of people say hold up their flag and say this guy's got to go.
There's like 20, so if 11 flags go
This
up,
guy's
boom, he's
dumb.
out.
This guy's dumb. Let him go. Is that what they do? basically.
Yeah, if there's 20 there's 20 flags. If 11 go up, that's the majority, and he's out. And so yeah, that's why I hate the format. But yeah, it was a smart decision by the majority because he wasn't on the topic.
Yeah, he wasn't understanding the point at all. Yeah.
All right. Any final thoughts on this? I thought the guy's smart and he's knowledgeable in his field, but he doesn't understand.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
I want to say morals from evolution because I teased that idea back when I was an atheist, and that doesn't work either. Because it would be like everything about the human experience is from evolution. So even the joy you get from killing someone if you're a murderer, that is the product of evolution. Or stopping yourself from doing a sneeze, is that evil to stop a sneeze? Well, that's just as much the product of evolution as, giving to the poor and then feeling good inside of yourself because of some chemical reaction. So evolution is just like a campfire. It's just this really, really big chemical reaction. It can't really have this mentality of a view of what's good and what's evil, this intentionality. It's just a bunch of is statements. It can't really tell you what you ought to do. And just because something would benefit the race, he keeps talking about, well, it would benefit the race if we all work together. Okay, well, that doesn't make it good to do that.
That is correct.
It's just an is.
That's
statement.
a fallacy. That's the is-ought fallacy.
Yeah.
I could give a couple more examples. So, lions. When a lion moves into another pride of lions, so it has ended up in a fight with the lion boss of another tribe, and it moves into that tribe to take over. It will kill all the baby lions.
Lion King, man.
Yeah, it will kill all the lion babies from that pride to make room for its own babies. Because there's scarcity of resources. So it will kill all the baby lions to make room for its own offspring with all its new lion babes. So it's wired to do that, and it helps that lion preserve its own offspring, helps it propagate, helps it be a good machine for propagating DNA. Would you say it's moral? No, I wouldn't say it has anything to do with morality. It's just, it's wired to do that. Well, guess what? If you're saying what we mean by moral is like what we're wired to do or something, like, okay, that's the is-ought fallacy. You're saying this is the way things are. That does not tell you it's moral. In fact, if you want to get your mind around the idea, imagine a different world. This is actually easy thought experiment. Imagine a different world where there was some genetic mutation and all females of human beings developed a mutation where they absolutely hate and refuse to have sex. They will not, under any circumstances, agree to have sex. Who's going?
For Nick Fuentes.
That's true. Nick Fuentes' life would be completely undisturbed. But so here's the thing: who's going to reproduce in that scenario? Grapists. That's who's going to reproduce, right? Because guys who say, "Oh well, the women are refusing, therefore nothing we can do about it," and the guys who are going around, "No, I will go. I'll bang whoever I want," right? Those are the guys who would reproduce. If you had an entire world where females refused to have sex, the only people who would reproduce would be grapists. All right. Now, but here's the thing: if only grapists were reproducing, then the next generation is going to be the product of all grapists. And guess what? The ones who reproduce most will be the best grapists, right? The better you are at doing that, the more offspring you will produce. What's that mean? It means each generation is going to produce better and better grapists until you have like the best, most amazing grapists who've ever lived, and they can just grape thousands of women and stuff like that. Those are the ones who are going to those are the ones who will be selected by natural selection, right? Here's the thing. You would get to a point where, guess what? That's for the benefit of the species. It's the only thing keeping the species going. Mm-hmm. Would you therefore say that graping women is moral? No, no, you're in a completely different category. Here's something that helped my species reproduce. Therefore, the behavior is moral. No, you're in completely different realms there. Anyway.